Hey, Being at Work listeners, welcome back to another episode. This is your host, Andrea Butcher. I have another Andrea joining me today. I moderated a panel conversation a few months ago, and Andrea was one of the panelists, and there were multiple nuggets that she shared that had so much impact, and I literally ran to her after the conversation and said, "Will you please join me on my podcast?" And so she has agreed. So I'm so glad she's here. Let me give you some context before we get into the conversation today, because this is a leadership podcast. And for most leaders, the work does not look so dramatic from the outside. It looks like showing up every single day, thinking through the implications of decisions, carrying responsibility for the people that you are leading, your team, your clients, your community, even your family. And over time, that responsibility adds weight because leadership isn't just about what you decide, it's about how you show up. Your presence matters, your energy matters, the culture you create shapes how people experience the work every day. And that is where today's conversation takes us and why I asked Andrea Short to join me on this show, because while leadership isn't always visible, it often becomes unpopular, especially when hard decisions have to be made. So my guest today, Andrea Short, believes that the most important part of her role as a leader is setting culture. She's the president and CEO of First Source Bank. She lives the company's values, which she'll talk about. She leads by example. And she understands that when people believe in the culture and the values, the organization becomes unstoppable, even when not everyone agrees with every decision. So listen in as we talk about what it means to show up for people, how leaders can manage their energy, why values matter more than opinions, and how culture and results are so deeply connected. Andrea, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here. I'm honored that I can be part of your podcast series.
Yes, and such an important part of the series because all of those things that I said in the intro are the nuggets that came through when I heard you on that panel. So let's talk a little bit about the reality of leadership today. You know, leadership is hard. Yeah, you feel that every day. You've seen that throughout your career, the uncertainty. So what is it that grounds you in the really hard times?
Yeah, so start off by going back to a quote that actually goes back a number of years, and I can't say I knew it when it was said. I'm not quite that old, but it was a Peter Drucker quote that talked about leadership was responsibility. And when I did a program, actually in a program at Harvard Business School a couple of years ago, they talked about that quote and leadership being responsibility, but who are you responsible to? Responsible to who, right? And so leadership is, and how it was defined there, which I have fully agree with, that leadership is, it's responsibility to your colleagues, it's responsibility to your clients, it's responsibility to your investors, your shareholders, and it's responsibility to your community. And so that, I think, is the overriding principle that I follow or that I believe in, that leadership is that responsibility. So when it comes to showing up and making hard decisions, I think you've got to take all those factors into account when you're leading, and you've got to weigh each one of those as you make a decision. And you throw on a political uncertainty or geopolitical or economic uncertainty, whatever those other outside factors are, you've got to let those weigh in. But it's showing up and making those hard decisions really sometimes on a daily basis.
And showing up when you don't want to. I mean, I suspect you have lots of times, like you'd rather not lead. That's why I said in the intro, it's sometimes leadership is unpopular. It's easier not to. It's easier to shrink into the background.
Yeah, well, nobody
can't do that.
Oh, yeah. Nobody wants to make the unpopular decisions. But I think there's several pieces of that, right? I think that first off, it's my job. That's what I have to do. I'm, CEO, you have to
Mm.
make those decisions. The buck stops there. And so it's my responsibility to make those tough decisions. And that's not lost on me. The other thing is you're not going to make everybody happy all the time. But if you try to make the best decision, and the best decision from a colleague standpoint, from a client standpoint, from the business standpoint, usually in general, you don't go wrong, right? Because you're trying to make the best decision. So I think that taking all those factors in and showing up, it's what I'm paid to do. It's really what I love to do. I love to come in and work with people, and making those hard decisions is part of it. One other thing I want to add is that some of it is understanding the why. It's part of change management, or making those hard decisions to the extent, and, I have to make the decisions. I don't necessarily have to justify, but I think if people understand your thought process and they understand why you made the decision that you made, then that's helpful. You have more buy-in, you have more people understand that, okay, she had a logic behind why she made that decision.
It's such a great point, because you said, like, you're going to disappoint people. So someone can be disappointed, but if you've got a clear why, that's got to be helpful to you then as leader of having confidence to move forward.
Right. I think and that really flows through all your work, not just your leadership. I've been throughout my career, I've always tried to make sure people understand the why. When you're asking them to work on a project, or you're asking them a question, I asked somebody a follow-up question. If I'm working with a controller and I'm asking about a number variance on something, on a financial result, I'm saying, okay, I want to know this because, X, Y, Z, so that they learn from that. And so I think it's understanding the why in how you're working on a day-to-day, but then understanding the why on this is how we're going to proceed because of blah, blah, blah. Then that helps people understand why you made that decision.
And it fills in the gaps.
Right.
Because so much of the time, people it's lack of understanding. Like, oh, okay, that's why we're going where we're going.
Right. And as a leader, I can't always explain the why all the way down through everybody throughout the organization, right? Through all the levels of the organization. But I can make sure that those closest to me, or those, the people more impacted, whatever the case may be, I have to rely on my team to help others understand the why. But it's also, there's times when you spread the why through the whole organization. There's times when it's a smaller group.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because you mentioned earlier the various stakeholders you're responsible to. And so you lead an organization of what, 1,200 people?
Correct.
Yeah. And like customers, your board, investors, like you've got multiple stakeholders. How do you ensure that you're clarifying the why across all of your stakeholder groups? Because there's a lot of people to be thinking about.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the decision, right? Not every decision hits all of those stakeholders, so they don't all need to know what the why is. You look at like COVID, managing through COVID, right? When COVID hit 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, right?
Can you believe that, by the way?
I can't. I don't want to get off topic, but no, I can't believe it's been 6 years. But at that point, I was CFO, I was head of our pandemic response unit, and I was just being named president of the bank. And so we had to make decisions just right on the spot. And we didn't know, right? Initially, you just didn't know. We didn't know what it meant, and you had different views on the media, whatnot. You had to make decisions. Those decisions were maybe easier to say the whys, because everybody understood that you didn't know. And so those decisions were maybe a little bit more widespread, and this is why we're doing it. And we might have shared it with more, we had to share it with all of our clients. We had to share it with our colleagues. This is how we're going to operate in a banking center and in our back rooms because of what we were dealing with COVID. That's maybe easier in that crisis time. It's maybe easier than the day-to-day decisions, hard decisions of, we still have a little bit of, we're in general, we're in the office bank. We come into work in the office. We're not 100% there. We do have a remote sales force. We have employees that work remote. And so we have a national business. And so that sales force is spread throughout the country. So we've had remote workers for decades. But having some of the backroom operations, the people that are in part of the home office working from home was something that was new to us during COVID. We didn't go 100% work from home, but we said people who were considered high risk could work from home. And so a lot of our competitors and people that we're competing for employees, for colleagues, they can be 100% work from home. I'm not a fan of work from home. I believe we work well, we work better together in person than we do over the phone, than we do even with audio, video type that we have today that we really didn't have before COVID. So those are unpopular decisions, and it's a balance of how do we get people in the office working together, and balancing workforce and what the expectations of the workforce and what some of our competitors offer. So those types of decisions you're talking about, the why with the colleagues, not necessarily with the other stakeholders.
And all of those decisions are a part of setting culture, shaping culture. You told me previously that setting culture is the biggest part of the job, is what you said. So there sounds like there's a lot of intentionality around that.
I'm huge on culture, right? So our mission here at First Source is to help our clients achieve security, build wealth, realize their dreams. I hope 100% of our colleagues can quote that mission. It's what we're here for. It's what grounds us and how we move forward. And our decisions and what we focus on and our priorities and how we come into work every day should go back to that mission.
Right.
Now, the other part of our culture, the mission, and then our values. And so our values here, and I say in new employee orientation, if you don't believe in the mission and you don't believe in the values, long-term, this may not be the place for you, because that's what we're about. That's who we are. It's our culture, right? So our values are, integrity, teamwork, superior quality, outstanding client service, and community leadership. I could speak through 8 of your podcasts talking through what all of those mean, right?
They're part of you.
Oh, yeah. I will say, and this is a podcast so people can't see me, but I will say that I do better saying them when I count them off on my fingers. And I usually can't say them without going through them on my fingers. But I think that really is what sets our tone. And having those values and all believing in those values, that doesn't mean that we all agree on politics, on religion, on some of the social issues. We have a diverse group of people that work for the bank. We don't all agree on those, but if we have the integrity that's not just doing the right thing when no one's looking, but it's also being respectful and treating others the way that you want to be treated. If we're living that value, then we can get through the differences on the other social type issues.
They are the tie that binds, aren't they?
Right. And so I think that's the values are actually in order of importance too, right? So integrity is the first one because that's the most important. If you don't have the integrity, you don't have anything. And then we go to the teamwork. And so I believe in these values to my core. And I think that is what helps then set that tone. And then it permeates throughout the organization.
Because you believe it. Yes. So it's believable because you believe it.
Yeah. Well, you don't, right? It's kind of like if you never tell a lie, you don't have to remember what to say to somebody because you were only honest with them in the past. So you don't have to try to remember, I said this to this. I can't say you know what I'm saying. You can't,
Yeah.
you have to, if you're always honest, you don't have to worry to remember what you said, because what you're going to
Right.
say the next time is going to also be honest. And so I think following the values and living those values and believing in those values, you need that to be genuine. A leader needs to be genuine. People can tell when you're not genuine. And so
Mhm.
I think you have to really believe in an organization's mission and values, maybe especially at the top, but it needs to go through all levels, that we all are aligned on those things.
So I'm really curious because you said you transitioned from CFO around COVID 6 years ago. And I know you were an accountant. Did you start your career in accounting?
I did, yes. Yep, CPA.
So it's just really fun hearing a CPA, former CFO, like be so passionate about values.
I think it's the core of who I am. You have to have those standards and those values, and they guide your life.
Has that always been a part of your leadership?
Yes, I would say. I will say I didn't always have them in defined words like that, right? I
Yeah.
can't say I would have said 20 years ago or maybe 30 years ago, these are my core leadership values or my core values. I don't know
Yeah.
that I had words around them, but I will say I think that people who see Andrea Short leader today and people who saw Andrea Short leader 20 years ago, I pray they see the same Andrea. I may be a little more refined now, and I try to be maybe a little more careful in some of the things I say at times, but I just think I think it's always been a part of me. I probably owe that to, to my mother. I owe it to, some of it transitioning out of the accounting role into more of the sales and leadership role. I probably attribute some of that ease of
Yeah.
doing that to being married to someone in sales for 30 years, 30, almost 40 years. That has really helped me on that side.
So today, as the CEO of this business, what impact has what impacts the values, Andrea? You modeling the values, you creating culture around purpose and values. What impact does that have? I mean, what's the connection to the results that you get?
I would say that it's everything. It's how you show up, right? So you have this reliance on your team as part of your teamwork value. You have your integrity and your respect. It's coming in, excited to greet every day, which can sound a little bit corny, but there's
Mhm.
nothing that makes me more excited about the work I do than hearing the impact that we're having on people's lives as a bank. I mean, we touch people's finances, we touch their lives. We're helping them achieve security, build wealth, realize their dreams. And so when I'm spending time with clients, or I'm spending time with colleagues, and they're sharing successes that they're having, and they're sharing positive experiences, and they're not all, out of the park. We're hitting a lot of singles, but just when they're sharing things where they're seeing, the quality job that they're doing, or how they're living the mission and helping our clients, I get so jazzed, if I can use that word. I think that's an old term, but I get so jazzed or excited by spending time with them and getting that positive feedback from them, hearing them talk about how they're helping our clients, or hearing our clients talk about how they're, someone at the banking center, a client service rep at the banking center, and the difference that they made in their life with helping them with a fraud, or just being kind to them when they're having a bad day, right? It's like I said, it's not all out of the park type situations, but it's just living those values of treating people the way you want to be treated.
So there is an impact on results for sure.
I definitely think there is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to connect the dots between culture and results. Culture isn't soft. A lot of times this is like the woo woo, soft, touchy feely stuff. but it drives outcomes, like all of the things you just described. It gives people the playbook for how to show up and work together and navigate hard decisions.
Exactly. Exactly. And it helps in the back room and it helps our other leaders as much as it helps out. We have 78 banking centers. And so I want somebody that's coming into the banking center in Carmel, Indiana to have the same positive experience as someone who's coming into Knox or into a banking center in Fort Wayne or South Bend or Michigan, wherever the banking center may be, right? We want them to have that same positive experience no matter where the client may choose to bank.
So let's bring all of this together. You've talked about making hard decisions, leveraging the values set the tone. We've talked about the values driving outcomes. Andrea, if you think about your leadership recently or over the last year or so, no doubt there have been lots of like micro tough challenges you've navigated. Is there anything that comes to mind? I'd love just an example that shows how you used your values. Was there like an unpopular decision you could tell us about or something that you had to navigate that would be helpful?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a specific card. I would say that one thing that's happened over the last 6 months is that I became CEO of the holding company of First Source Corporation. And so I am moving into the role. Our former CEO was chairman or CEO of First Source Corporation. Chris Murphy, he was chairman or CEO of First Source Corporation for close to 50 years. He was in one role or another and just a legend in and of himself. And so in moving into CEO, there's been a number of things that I have had to take on that he's done. I'm also moving into a role that he has had for so long that it's not easy for him to just flip the switch off, right? So he's our executive chairman of the board. So he is still, involved, but yet we are switching roles. And so I would say some of those values have come in how we do that transition. So that integrity, respectfulness, the teamwork of how are we working together as a team, it's shifted. You're learning new things. It's the old maybe storming norming type example, but it's shifted, but we're working through how does the team now operate and are we continuing to provide those superior quality, and how are we addressing community leadership with a new role that I have. So I think that we still use those values to guide us as we go through that transition. They just impact every day.
It impacts every day.
It does.
What has been most challenging for you in that transition?
So I am taking on new things, and there's things, I think it's the excitement of taking on new things and of leading where I want to do more, and he's not quite ready to give that up. And he's, it's just a transition. We're definitely making a lot of progress, and he's moving into figuring out what his role is. I'm moving into mine. But it's some of it's an impatience of trying to say, wait, I get to make that decision. You don't get to make that decision anymore. And then it's also, as I've given other duties to other people, it's the same thing, right? I'm looking in the mirror and saying, wait, Andrea, you got to let somebody else do that because now you've moved them into a new role. So I think the tough part is the patience of figuring out the role and just being cognizant of the fact that someone has done a role for a long time and you've got it's a slow transition.
It sounds like the two of you have a good relationship.
I would say we have a phenomenal relationship.
Yeah.
I think of him as a brilliant leader. He's done a lot for the state of Indiana, for the community, for banking. I can go on, but we have a very good relationship, and we're very open with each other. I can ask him anything. I tell him when I don't agree with him, right? And not everybody likes to do that, but you have to work through those things and talk through those, and then understand the why going back to the why. He may have made a decision in the past. This is before. Now, right now,
Sure.
I'm CEO. Now I got to make the hard decision. That's the other thing. I can't blame everything on him anymore. I can't say, well, nope, sorry, that's the way we got to do it. Now I'm the one that's held accountable. But I think in the past we've worked things like that, and it's got a very big mutual respect for each other.
Well, there's a lot of trust there.
Oh, most definitely.
So you're in a much better position to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't understand this."
Yeah.
So it's another important reminder for navigating the hard things. Build trust with the key stakeholders involved.
Exactly.
As I listen to your story and reflect on all of this, I mean, it is all about steadiness.
Mm-hmm.
I love when you said, like, the Andrea 20 years ago, you would expect that there would be consistency. You have a steadiness about you. And presence.
Yes.
Like, you know who you are. It's important to you to be intentional about how you show up. And you use your values as a guiding force.
Exactly.
In doing that.
Showing up, people want that consistency, right? They want a leader that's consistent, and they know what to expect. There's people here that will say, well, we didn't ask you that because we know that you would say no because of XYZ or whatever, or we didn't. So I think being consistent in how you lead is very important, and it does set that tone. It doesn't create the chaos of a day-to-day of what Andrea Short are we going to run into in this meeting. They know I'm going to be on time. They know I'm not going to say a project's complete until 100% of the project is complete. All the steps are complete. They know certain things that how I am going to react to something, especially those that have worked with me longer. I think showing up positive is very important also. People get their energy from the leader. And I learned that lesson when I was controller, and it was a quarter end and a stressful time trying to meet all these deadlines. And I sat there and I'm like, why is everybody so stressed? And it's like, well, I was stressed, right? And people are feeding off that energy. And so now, that's not to say I don't get stressed today, but I try very hard to control that and control what shows, and so that it's, people feed off the leader's energy, and it's my responsibility to have that positive, focused energy. And maybe that's where focusing on the culture, the mission, and the values keep me grounded and keep me focused and keep me positive going forward.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, it is. You make such an important point there about paying attention to what's going on within you, because you're setting the tone. You leaders, it's important to be aware of what tone I am setting, isn't it? And look in the mirror. If everyone around you is stressed, perhaps it's you that's creating that.
Yeah. You're responsible, right? So you got to spend some time in that self-reflection. It's always something I'm working on, right? It's not something I certainly have perfected, but it's how do you do that? How do you unwind? How do you let go of your stress? How do you find outlets for that so that it's not impacting you on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, absolutely. And we're never done growing as leaders. There's never going to be a day when we can check the box. So when you think about 2026, like this year of leadership, as you're transitioning into this broader role, like what are your growth points this year? What are you focused on?
Yeah. So I feel like I do need to continue to work on development. I'm not big on reading business books. Maybe I'm not supposed to. Now this is being documented out there.
Right.
I'm better at listening to podcasts, right? They're shorter, or listening to books, right? So I think there are some things I want to learn more about. I think in leading and how the business is evolving, I need to know what questions to ask as we evolve and I lead the bank through 2026 and years going forward. So it's learning more on AI. It's learning more, it's developing knowledge within myself so that I'm not going to know everything about everything, but I need to know some of the questions to ask people that are the experts, or that we can develop that level of expertise. I think it's a general, there's some topics that I want to expand my knowledge of. And then I think just always working on, leading and guiding and, becoming a better person every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you can take care of all the people in
Yeah.
your care.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for showing up with your steadiness and your values and your big old heart and sharing all these insights with us. I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for all you're doing to help us, have these podcasts that we can listen to, that we can take a tidbit from, right? Just one tidbit can make the difference in a day or a week or even a lifetime, really. So thank you.
Absolutely. If our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you? Is LinkedIn a good place to connect with Andrea Short?
I'm on LinkedIn, Andrea Short, First Source Bank. You can find me through there. My email is shorta, SHORTA, at the numeral 1, STSOURCE.com. And those are really the best places, I think, to reach out to me.
Okay. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Let's connect to go a bit deeper. How can I help you? Looking for an executive coach, a facilitator for a team or leader engagement, or a high energy, heartfelt speaker? Learn more and connect with me through our website at abundantempowerment.com. I look forward to co-creating something magical with you.